I have an incredible guest I'm going to expose you all to. His name is Bill Beswick. He's based out of the UK. He is a sports psychologist and has been a thinking partner for me for about 4 or 5 years. And one of the reasons I hired Bill is because he has Parkinson's and he's 75 and he has a very sharp view on what's important. And so every month I connect with him to try and re-anchor into really what matters in life. And so it's such an honor for me to be able to share his thoughts with you. And with that being said, Bill, welcome.
Thank you, Brett. Hello, everybody. Well, greetings from Cheshire in northwest England.
Hey, so one of the things that I wanted to touch base with you on first is I think that you can be a mirror for American sport. And so as you look at it, because you're not directly inside the system, how do you think about it?
Well, I love the outcomes of American sport. Who doesn't love the Final Four, the bowl games, Super Bowl, playoffs, NBA playoffs? But I do worry about the process of getting there. It's the process, not the outcome, that concerns me. In the process, many of my good friends, coaches, are squeezed in terms of the talk is of intangibles. The object of sport is to raise good people, make good citizens. But really the focus is on tangibles, the win-loss record. And as such, the coaches get squeezed into behavior that they normally wouldn't contemplate. That worries me. Because when you're coaching, you take a performer self approach. You change yourself when you step on the floor and become a coach. You become a performer self. And that means you leave your real self behind temporarily. But when your performer self can act as an excuse for you to do things that you shouldn't normally do, and then you have to face up to that when you go back into your real self, because eventually we all have to go back into our real self. And many of the coaches I work with at the end of their coaching career have quite a few regrets. And I think that's difficult, where they've prioritized human doings over human beings. But it's understandable given the pressure that the sporting system in America puts on coaches.
You know, one of the things that I love talking with you about is this concept that if there was an artist that was commissioned to build a statue of you, and you could spend time with that statue alone before the public would see it, how would your 35-year-old self process that statue versus your 75-year-old self?
Well, I think the difference would be ego. When you're 35, you're rocking as a coach. And I was rocking as a coach, as the England national basketball coach. We were doing well. And my ego was flying. As a 75-year-old with Parkinson's, I have great humility. I would look at that statue and say, that's not me. That's an image. It's what other people want it to be. I don't want to be a statue. I want to be a good father, husband, granddad, my main role at the moment. And I think that that's what I mean about the corruption of the system. A statue, what does that mean? I mean, the impact of that can be enormous on a 35-year-old who actually believes the propaganda, who actually falls for that and sinks into their performer self, destroying the substance of their real self.
And what are the hazards when you derive your esteem from that professional self?
The hazards are losing reality, losing a sense of who you are, and losing a sense of what's important. I think your priorities change. The priority has got to be home, family, friends, time, growth as a whole person. But coaching narrows you down into becoming a great coach, but losing the opportunity to become a whole person, a family person. And that for me is the greatest danger. And I work with all my coaches avoiding that. And it's a subtle process because coaching's so hard. I've been a head coach. I know how difficult it is. And it absorbs you so much that unless you've got a thinking partner like me to rebalance you, to take you up into the helicopter and say, look down on your life and say, is this what you want? Many of them, coaches, don't know what they want. They're so locked into the treadmill of coaching day by day. They never even consider, what do I want? This is my life. This is my story. And I'm giving it away. I'm giving my life and my story away for a win-loss record. And then I say to them, how badly do you want it? And then we reposition their values. But it's very difficult. I understand that.
One of my favorite things to do is to read just these different poems to get your interpretation on them, because for whatever reason, they move my soul. And so what I'd like to do is read one and just get your reaction. This is called The Truth Shop. I could hardly believe my eyes when I saw the name of the shop, The Truth Shop. The saleswoman was very polite. What type of truth did I wish to purchase, partial or whole? The whole truth, of course. No deceptions for me, no defenses, no rationalizations. I wanted my truth plain and unadulterated. She waved me onto the other side of the store. The salesman was there, pointed to the price tag. The price is very high, sir, he said. What is it, I asked, determined to get the whole truth, no matter what it cost. Your security, sir, he answered. I came away with a heavy heart. I still need the safety of my unquestioned beliefs. When you hear that, how do you interpret that, Bill?
My role as a thinking partner is a truth teller. I've had to tell you things, Brett, that weren't easy. But that's what you need me for. You need me to be a timeout in your life, to press the pause button, reboot your thinking. And coaches need that. They need a visit to the truth shop now and again. But they have to give something to get something. And that means being accountable to yourself. When you face the truth, you get a tough look at yourself. And you have to ask the question, is this what I want? Am I doing good here? Am I helping young people by being like this? And mainly, am I doing damage to my family?
One of the coaches that you were working with looked back on his life and said there was a trail of tears left behind me.
That was a very tough thing to hear. It's a very tough conversation. When a coach is at the end of his career and reviewing with me the impact of his career, to say something like that was quite devastating. A trail of tears. And what he was saying was those tears weren't his. He was too busy being fantastic and winning all the plaudits and getting all the praise. It was his family and his friends that had the tears. And I think we can lose a sense of who we are and what we really mean. I remember in one of your shows, Brett, you told a story about Bob Stoops, a lovely story. I think he probably shared it with you, and very honestly. And he talked about arriving home unexpectedly. His plane had been cancelled and he went back home and he wasn't expected. The family were at dinner and one of the children came to open the door and went back to the table and said, "Hey folks, Bob Stoops is here, not Dad." And I can remember sitting around the kitchen table with my wife after 5 years as England coach and her saying to me, "I don't think you should go again. The boys are starting to call you coach."
Bill, I think about what you just said, and I think about a story you told me recently about your son tying your shoe for you. How do you think about those two things?
I mentioned before that 75 with Parkinson's is a very humble state of affairs. You're no longer immortal, you become mortal. That's what age does for you. But it brings a sense of reality and a sense of perspective to your life. I love the story of Clint Eastwood. I wake up every morning with Parkinson's, so I have a challenge. Do I wake up in victim mentality? I'm going to struggle with my socks today. I'm going to struggle with my shoes today. Or do I wake up with fighter mentality? I've got to get on with this. I've got to beat it. Parkinson's, I have Parkinson's, but it doesn't have me. And I think of a story one of my American basketball players from Virginia sent me when he heard I had Parkinson's, and it's Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood's playing golf. And his partner says, "How old are you, Clint?" And Clint says, 88 on Monday. And his partner says, "What are you going to do?" He said, "I'm going to start a new movie." He said, "How do you do it?" He said, "I wake up every morning and don't let the old man in." And I wake up every morning and don't let the old man in. And although I go in fighter mentality, there are things where I need some help occasionally. And I'm so grateful that I've given enough to my family that my son, who's a very distinguished lawyer, my son feels at ease bending down and tying my shoelaces. I'm so grateful that our relationship and love extends that far.
So powerful, Bill. And I think through something that a coach said to me. He had a good friend retire, and he had a storied career. And the coach sent him a text saying, "Great body of work." And the coach sent him back a message saying, "It's good to be on the other side. When I look back at my 30 years, a lot of stressing over nothing that matters."
So true. So true. You think you'll remember I coached for 20 years. You think you remember all the scores and the games and the results. I can probably remember 3 or 4 games, 3 or 4 results. What I do remember is the camaraderie, the relationships, the young people I loved and helped along the way. I have had lots of teams, but I always wanted to have a team with soul. A team that bonded together as people so much that the team had soul, a spirit that was unique. And my very first basketball team, which was a group of friends, I was elected as coach because I was the worst player. So my very first group of basketball players meets every year in a reunion. And we're all older men now. And it's just quite lovely. That's what's important. Will your players want to meet you 20 years, 30? Will they be as concerned as my captain is about my health and my taking care of me? I think that's what matters. Have you made the relationships that last the course of time? That's really human, really powerful.
That's powerful, Bill. And I guess the last question I would ask you is, how have you found peace with your reckoning?
I made lots and lots of mistakes. But when you come to nearing the end of your life, you begin to measure the pluses and the minuses. And you realize that minuses are all part of the journey. The mistakes are part of the journey. Everybody makes them. The thing to do is to move beyond them and concentrate and focus on the contribution you made to other people, your family, your society.
Beautifully stated, Bill. You know how much love I have for you, and I know that your condition makes it hard for you to travel, to be here with us in person, but I can assure you that all of these people feel very blessed that you came out. Let's give Bill Beswick a hand.